Rahman Rahim. Thank you for inviting me for this workshop, and inshallah I'll share a few ideas during the next 40 to 60 minutes inshallah. This time was given to me about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I've tried to prepare some slides and explain some concepts that we have in Islamic education as simply as I can put it. There'll be areas which may seem a bit random, some areas may seem a bit haphazard, but you have to bear with me. And then, inshallah, at the end of the session, I think people will gain an overall positive understanding. Okay, we first have to go and explain the question of sexual identity is a question that Islam raises from before procreation. It all has a role. It's not once they reach the age of puberty, now we have to tackle it. We have to contribute to the sexual identity of the child from way before procreation. Even the behavior of our ancestors, especially the parents, even has a role. The concept of responsibility is a valid one between generations. It's not as if generations are mutually exclusive to one another. Actions of a certain generation has an effect on succeeding generations. How they earned, how they ate, what they ate, how they acted, their thoughts, how they lived, where they lived. All these things are different parameters which have an effect. Now you may say, why should what our ancestors did have an effect on us? Is that fair? No, it's not fair. But the question is, who are you reproaching? Who are you attributing the blame to? When a mother and father, if they drink and smoke and then the child is born without a limb, is that fair? We say no. Who do we attribute the blame to? Who do we attribute this physical disability to? The way the parents acted. It's possible the way the great-grandparents or the grandparents acted. There's responsibility between these generations. The same applies with spiritual deficiencies. The child that is born is a product of previous generations' actions, thoughts, the way they earned, the way they lived. And for a marginal point, that's how we justify the concept of infallibility at birth. Because when the parents, the grandparents, the great-grandparents, and so on and so forth, they lived purely, they thought purely, they earned purely, everything was pure, it's going to be a pure offspring. So pure that they won't even need guidance. So pure they'll be in contact with angels. Being in contact with angels is a function of one's purity. Then at the time of conception, why do you think Islam has all these rules concerning conception? It gives a set of instructions that we have to abide by. All this is important in the identity of the offspring and even the sexual identity, as will become apparent. But at the time of conception, how the parents thought, how the parents acted, how the parents earned, these are important. We have traditions if, at the time of intercourse, if the man is thinking of other than one's wife, if a son is to be born, they'll be effeminate, woman-like, and so on and so forth. We have tens and tens of these kind of traditions. Sex is something sacred in Islam. That's why it's brought a protocol of all these different instructions. So you see, from pre-procreation it all started. At conception, still important. The identity is still outside the hands of the child. The destiny of the child is still outside the hands of that child. It's in the hands of those before him or her. Then we come to gestation. Now here suddenly all the focus goes on the mother during these 9 months of gestation. Her thoughts, her intentions, her actions, the environment that she's living in. Was it peaceful? Was it not peaceful? And so on and so forth. All these things together, what started as a liquid embryo becomes now 3 to 4 kilograms of flesh. It's as if it's coming from the existence of the mother. All her thoughts and what she ate and all these parameters are all contributing to the identity of this child. Then we come to birth. After 9 months, at birth, Islam comes. Now there are a number of instructions it gives. I've just listed 8 of them. Reading the adhan and iqamah, you'll be surprised at the number of traditions we have, and the benefits of hearing the first noises and sounds from a believing parents, for example. The formulae, the clauses that are read in the Adhan and Iqamah has an incredible effect on the child. The first noises on entering the world, Islam certainly has a say. It says, no, you listen to these clauses from such and such a heart. It's important. Then we come to the ghus. There's a ghus that is given. Wiping of the turba, wiping of the Euphrates water, only a drop, the turba only a speck. Wipe it along the palate of the child. The traditions, here again, it goes into the ratioligas of why do you do such a thing. When you do it with the intention of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, with the intention of fighting against oppression, with the intention of living a just life, with that intention, doing this action, it will contribute to that child in its later years, according to explicit traditions. All of these have tens of traditions. I'm just going through them content style, otherwise we would never pass the first few slides. Choosing a decent name, that also is very important. It has an effect. The potential is there. When I say it has an effect on these different things, I'm not saying the effect is definitive, 100%. These are all potential, because there are 1,001 parameters which contribute to the final constitution and identity of the child. Each one has its own effect. Which parameters will have more of an effect, which parameters will be inhibited, which ones will be enhanced. It's very difficult to say which one will predominate. We don't know. We just know that these parameters exist and we have to do our best. Then we have the issue of shaving off the hair at day 7, whether they're male or female, and then the weight in gold or silver you give in charity. See, starting off the life of the child with charity. The aqiqah, the slaughtering of the sheep, that's usually after 1 week too. Circumcision is important, and then celebrating the birthday. It's something important, celebrating, and we have the logic of this is seen in the Holy Quran as well. Then there's the question of 2 years breastfeeding. You see, all these, I'm going step by step, because all these different things, they're shaping the destiny of the child. So far the child has had no say in this matter. That shows the responsibility that plays over our shoulders. Now, when we go to the traditions of breastfeeding, suddenly we see this concept of spirituality and ethics being transmitted through the milk. And then we have imams, the infallibles, saying that, be careful who is breastfeeding. In those days, 1400 years ago, they would always look for pious women, and if they were also with child, they would give their child to the pious woman to breastfeed their child. In those days, there was a custom, they would have more than 1 or 2 breastfeeding mothers. It was important for them. They would look for this because it has an effect. If the woman has praiseworthy ethics, has decent ethics, the traditions say there's a potential that this will be transmitted to the child. If the woman though suffers from cowardice, depression, or anger, or these kind of things, these things will be transmitted to the child. All these things shaping the child. We have traditions that when the Holy Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was once with a child in one's, the child was I think one year of age, was in the arms of the Holy Messenger, then the child began urinating. And then those around, with shock and horror, in a state of panic, took the child out of the hands of the Holy Prophet, or wanted to. And the Holy Prophet said, no, everyone be calm, let the child stay here, appreciating and acknowledging the emotions of the child, and that the child can receive negative impressions, even though it's only 1 year of age, when people around them are in shock or horror, or for whatever reason. So even during breastfeeding, where the mother is breastfeeding, she has to be very calm, very gentle. She shouldn't be in any state of depression or distress and so on and so forth. All these have an effect, as this tradition by the Holy Prophet, or the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet showed. Just because it's 1 year of age, it doesn't mean... Okay, then we come to three general phases that Islam brings. The first is from 0 to 7. Here, the child is like a king. What does that mean, though? Here, the scholars have given different arguments here. I'm just giving you, I'm sharing one side of the argument. I'm not saying this is the be-all and end-all. There may be other understandings, and maybe this one may be wrong. But what I've studied with different people, the whole concept is that from 0 to 7, the child doesn't understand the language of discipline. You can't discipline the child. He has to be like the king. He has to empty himself out, empty all the energy he has out. And the parents have to help in this process. Any accumulated energy the first 7 years may turn into negative energy in the later years. That's not to say don't teach the child. That's not to say there should be no learning. But learning through play, learning through other means, but not learning through discipline. By discipline I mean you have to have food at this hour. You have to be taught this at this hour. No, you can't say that to a child. They don't understand discipline. They may be scared the way you're asking, and they may listen to you out of fear, but discipline they don't understand. And that's going to be wasting. It may have a wasting effect upon the child. So yes, in the first 7 years, and that's not very easy to practice, as long as the parents are patient, the child has to be free. Now yes, if the child wants to all of a sudden put his hand in fire, then you have to step in, of course. But maximally allow the child to release that energy and let him do whatever he wants. If the child suddenly gets an antique in the house and breaks the antique, that's okay. You should put an antique accessible to the child. Don't limit the child. You limit your lifestyle. Don't put those things in the reach of the child. Otherwise, you should never limit. The less you limit the child in the first 7 years, the more healthy that child will be in later years. There was one American psychologist that with every divorce case you show me, just show me the first 5 years of the child and I'll give you the cause of the divorce. So see, these things even the West are beginning to appreciate and understand. Now, yes, in Islam, even in the first 7 years, Islam is full of different instructions and protocols of what to do with the child. But that doesn't mean you have to do it with discipline. Those instructions that Islam has very broadly can be classified by teaching the child love of the Ahlul Bayt, love of the Holy Prophet, reciting the Quran, but not forcing them to memorize. And if you can make them memorize without discipline, you can use your initiative, and maybe you can think of a model which does that. As long as there's no discipline, these things are, you can do them. Now with these things, now love of the Holy Prophet, yes, we have traditions that after 3, when they begin speaking, teach them La ilaha illallah 7 times. And just keep it with La ilaha illallah. And then at 3 years and so many months, teach them the salawat. And it keeps on going, one by one. For example, when 4 years is completed, it says, ask them if they can differentiate their left and right hands. If they can, teach them just to prostrate, that's it. Not to do salah, just to prostrate. And it keeps on going into the particularities. Unfortunately, I didn't have the books with me, so I couldn't find the traditions which I had in mind. But very broadly speaking, it's all pivoted around Tawheed, love of the Holy Prophet, love of the Ahlul Bayt, reciting the Quran, and then later on in the first 7 years, this importance of the scholars. This is very important, the sanctity of the scholars. Now, I'm not saying all scholars are sacred, but the thing is, they have to appreciate a source of knowledge. That's important. Now, in the dua of Abu Hamza al-Thumali, which I'm sure everyone read during the month of Ramadan, during the dua, there are 10 or 11 clauses, each one being a reason why people stray from salvation, why they become deviated. One of my ustads in all once told me that one of those 11, which are all causes of people losing their salvation, he said one of those 11 causes is the root cause to all the others, and it was this one. وَلَعَلَّكَ فَقَدْتَنِي مِنْ مَجَالِسِ الْعُلَمَاءِ فَخَذَلْتَنِي, which translated, or maybe you observed me as being absent from the assembly of scholars, and so you put me down. Why? Because the more you are distanced from the scholars, the more the probability of you losing that salvation, losing that prosperity, that spiritual prosperity. It's important. Now, my advice in regards to this is, once they become email alert and friendly, put them in contact with a scholar and let them email. Now, in the first 10 years, that may be a bit more difficult. So you would have to go and in person and see as much scholars as you can, as much lectures and so on and so forth. But ideally, the offspring, the child, has to be in contact. Now, today there's no excuse with the technology that we have. It's very easy to communicate. Now, every one day, every alternate day, the person may have questions, and they can easily email and quickly receive an answer. But the point is, you have to always be in contact with the ulama. That's something which is important for one's destiny. Once that becomes lost, it's going to be problematic. And centers and mosques that we have today throughout America, these are all means for that contact and assembly to be made, to be actualized. Then we come to the second 7 years, that's 7 to 14 years. Now here suddenly the shift changes a bit. Now these age classifications, these are just rough guidelines the traditions have shown. Now I don't mean that after 7 years, from 7 years, from the first day after 7 years, you suddenly change your approach. Maybe the last year of the first 7 years, you can do it smoothly, in a smooth transition. But here, in the second 7 years, and this is mainly where most parents fail, is that now discipline is pivotal. The goal is that the child must submit. They have to know who is the boss in the house. And why does Islam have this approach? Is because that child is going to acquire puberty in the second 7 years. And then when they do acquire the age of puberty, they're going to be given a set of laws to abide by, the Sharia, the wajib actions, the muharramat, and so on and so forth. If they don't understand submission before then, they're going to have difficulty in understanding submission after. So that's why Islam here in these 7 years, it's a focus. They have to understand this concept of submission, and any kind of learning, it has to be done with discipline. Now with discipline, I don't mean hitting, but you can use your own initiative, reward, punishment, system, whatever you want. Okay, now, they were just broad guidelines. Now, within those broad guidelines, now let's go through the methods of teaching and nurturing the sexuality now of this child. There are two ways. There's a direct method of teaching and nurturing sexuality and an indirect. Starting with the direct, there are different ways once again. One is during childhood years. Even in marriage, there are ways we have, even before marriage and after marriage, where this has to be nurtured. But in this discussion, I'll be focusing mainly on the first 14 years. So, what are these direct methods in the childhood years? Well, first, education and nurturing the sexual identity. We'll go through these one by one in a minute. Second, prevention of precursors that may precipitate sexuality. And third, discussing and answering children's sexuality-related questions. This is the pivot to the direct methods in the childhood years. Okay, now what do we mean by, first of all, this sexual identity? Well, here in this discussion, what I mean is that sexual identity which is formed through moderate establishment and development of the following realms of the boy or girl. It's biological, psychological, emotional, and social dimensions. During the first 14 years, it has to grow on a par with and in tune with the times and the place that it is, and what the expectations are for that person at that particular age, biologically, what the expectations are psychologically, emotionally, and socially. Now, how is this to be executed? First, and these will be explained more, these are just a few random points, but we'll come to more important points in a minute. first, the parents have to hold each sex in high esteem, never belittling either one of them, never differentiating one over the other. And the aim is that the child, be they male or female, they have to feel proud of who he or she is, never wishing to be of the other sex. You see, here the psychological and emotional dimensions have to be paid heed to. If you ever hear the child saying, for whatever reason, I wish I was a boy or I wish I was a girl, something went wrong there in that psychological and emotional development of the child. Now, what did you do wrong? There are a wide variety of different things that will come to mind. The parents, they have to express words and actions of honor and gratitude in front of the children, to the children. They have to honor them highly. They have to be taught what values are expected from each sex so that they acquire a firm understanding of these things early on in life, on a par with the age. The body language and mannerisms of the parents plays a pivotal role, especially in the first 7 years, even in the second 7 years. But in the first 7 years, where there's no rationality or no firm understanding, the body mannerisms and language of the parents do much more than encyclopedias of words. Now, we have one tradition here from the Holy Messenger. Man kanat lahu untha, son was a daughter. Falam yu'dhaha, and doesn't hurt them. Walam yuhniha, doesn't insult them. Walam yu'thir waladahu alayha, and doesn't show any favoritism of the son over that daughter. Adkhalahu Allahu al-Jannah, and Allah will make them enter heaven. But the point being, there should be no hurting, there should be no belittling, no dishonoring, no debasing, there should be no favoritism. It's important here, even in relation to the sexual identity of a person. Because once that starts, they question first and foremost why maybe now I'm a male or a female being treated in such a way. Imam Sadiq was once asked, now the next two hadith are in relation to how the biological and social and maybe even emotional dimensions have to be paid heed to. These are just examples here. He was asked in relation to whether our wives and children, they should be adorned and whether this is important. And he replied, Na'am, yes. And nisa'a wal jawari, one's wives and one's daughters. وَأَمَّا الْغِلْمَانِ, but concerning sons, فَلَا, no, they shouldn't be adorned. And they shouldn't be learned, they shouldn't be taught to be adorned. So we're instructed to adorn the female members of the family, but not the male members. And this goes back to the constitution of the woman, the constitution of the man. At the end of the day, they're different. They have different needs. They express themselves differently. Adornment-wise, biologically, we see that the whole concept of shahwa is much more stronger in the woman than in the man. And now these have to be catered for. They have to be satiated. So for the woman, yes, let them be adorned in the house as much as possible, and that's okay, and there's no problem, and they have to be, because they're a woman, and they have to be biologically and emotionally catered for as women. But when we have another entity, for the man, they don't have such needs. There, suddenly gold, silk, and many things suddenly become haram for the man. For prayer, or even gold, even in relation to outside prayer. Why? These kind of adornments, then Islam says no. We don't need to enhance this in the boy. In the girl, as much as you want, let her wear gold and so on and so forth. But in the boy, it's different. The biology is different. The psychology is different. So there, Islam says no. All this contributes to that enhancing of that femininity or masculinity, that sex, it contributes here. So this must be identified. Then we have other traditions from Holy Messenger. He says, Amirun Nisa fi banatihinna, that let the women pay heed to the affairs of the girls. Because the man, he doesn't understand, he doesn't appreciate it. Let the women who understand it, let them do it, they know how to cater for these things. If the man suddenly comes and says, I don't want my daughter to wear this or that, well, he doesn't know. And he may be doing a disservice to the biological development of the girl, and so on and so forth. Once Imam Sadiq was asked, until what age can the mother wash his son? He said up to 3 years of age. Now this will be explained more later on. See, these are very subtle points now. Although there's one error I had here, I didn't have time to correct, but the rationale is that from 3 onwards, the child starts noticing, realizing, or differentiating his body from bodies of the other sex. And then were a female to wash him when he's noticing this difference. Now here I wrote female characteristics may be transmitted. That's a typo, sorry. That's not the statement I wanted to say. What I was wanting to say is that the wrong signals can be given in that sexual identity of the child. The child, let's say is a male, is realizing that the things that he has is different to what the other sex has from 3 onwards. Now all of a sudden a woman is washing, private parts and so on and so forth. This can give the wrong image to the man, to the boy. Because at the end of the day, they're looking at the parents as models. They're taking in, they're interiorizing, if you like. In this next slide here, as one's sexual consciousness commences, especially from 4 to 5 years of age, the child incorporates, interiorizes and accommodates their mother and father's example within themselves, acquiring not necessarily their traits, but looking at them and wanting to simulate and copy them. And that's going to be difficult when a woman is in touch with the private parts of the opposite sex. Here, the man has more of a responsibility here, and as we come later on, here Islam at a certain age then wants no one to do it. He wants to make the child as independent as possible, as soon as possible. And there are very subtle reasons why, reasons which may explain the causes of many sexual transgressions such as masturbation. We'll come to that in a minute. But the parents are their first models in life. The children just copy, they just emulate. So they have to emulate the right source. So if the boy was left primarily to the father, the girl primarily, not confined, but to the mother, this will maximize a healthy sexual identity. Now, but here just examples where the boy or girl needs a man or a woman respectively, or a father or a mother to act as an example. Right, so here the boy and the girl, they're different at the end of the day. They have different needs. So choosing of gifts and toys would leave it to the parent of the same sex. They would appreciate it more rather than the father buying a gift for the daughter. Or inciting to do certain activities, or how to react to certain scenarios in life. So these are important, that the parent of the same sex does it. Look at when it comes to custody, all of a sudden Islam, after divorce, gives the custody of the girl to the mother for the first 7 years. She's almost reaching the age of puberty, then she can choose for herself after that. But for 7/9 of her life, she's in the hands of the mother. This is one of the rationale why. Because the mother has to contribute primarily to the sexual identity of the girl. Whereas for the man, the boy then has to be under the auspices of the man primarily. Now yes, there are exceptions. If they lose their right to be a parent and all that, that's quite possible, and they don't deserve because they don't understand what the best interests of the child are. That's all understood. But even then, for the man, it's after 2 years. The boy goes to the man. Because now the boy has to emulate the man now. Because now they've divorced. Islam gives the boy to the man at 2 years. That's the common perspective amongst the Maraji. But even there, with the boy, the first 2 years has to still be with the mother. And that's because of the breastfeeding role and the contribution that can't be compromised with. So just imagine if the father is working all the day, the boy, the son, they're going to suffer. Identity-wise, you're automatically going to compromise that. And if the mother is working all day, both the boy and the girl will suffer, because even with the man, both will suffer. But the boy will suffer more if the father figure is lacking in life. And the girl will suffer more if the mother figure is not there present. And this will cause confusion at the end of the day. See, Islam has a certain protocol. It wants, during the first 14 years, Islam has these instructions to contribute in a certain way. It wants to maximize, or rather minimize, any confusion in one's sexual identity and rather maximize it. So here the question of responsibility and priorities that the man and woman has to have. Working, there's nothing wrong with working. But you have to note that if everything is financial in life, if everything is about a big house and a big car and these kind of things, then you wouldn't really have had time to abide by the spiritual protocol that Islam has put forward, how Islam wants that physical and spiritual makeup of the child to grow within the first 14 years. And the side effects on the child can be lifelong. So general guidelines up to now, affection has to be displayed in moderation. The mother shouldn't show that excessive affection to the son. The father, the affection always has to be there, but should never be out of bounds. There should be no prejudice, no differentiating one over the other. The dress sense has to be on a par with one's sex and social expectations. The child's playing environment must be on a par with one's sex even there. Opposite sex characteristics not to be imposed directly or indirectly on the child. The process of nurturing starts early, from 2 or 3 years onwards. Demarcating, clearly defining the mother and father's roles in and outside the house. It helps to avoid any confusion, and honoring and valuing the children, especially the father, son, and mother-daughter. Okay. Another is prevention of precursors that precipitate sexuality. Now this is important too. It's a myth to believe that children don't have sexual tendencies, only near puberty do they acquire it. This is not true. On birth, part of the fitra, it's there. It's that sexual dimension of the fitra. So it's present. But children too, they become biologically excited, they have erections, it's something very natural because it's something which they have, and they're very young, but they're just ignorant in relation to what this thing is, what the function of having an erection is. And they don't understand it, they're still ignorant, but they have it. And the fact that they have it, it means the responsibility of catering for that sexual dimension of them, it's important, because it's there. The wrong steps and the wrong moves can precipitate it too early or make it even deviate in a particular path. And the scientists have all said that population is theoretically possible, but they would have to be skilled or they have to know what they're doing, and that's not the case. Right, until puberty, 2 parameters have to be observed. One is the gradual and healthy development of the child's awareness of the body and its sexual boundaries. And secondly, not to be stimulated sexually, the child, even from a young age, not to be stimulated sexually or exposed to sex before puberty or near the time of puberty. So any time, it's not only once they're 9 or 10, even from a very young age, this has to be controlled. These are the very important, and this underlies the rationale of many of the rulings we have in Islam, which we're going to come to. We don't want to expose them to any form of environment which may stimulate that faculty which they have. So, we shouldn't kid ourselves. The major priority lies with the parents, and what the parents can do for the children outweighs what the school can do. Don't think that the parents' role is limited and the school has no. You can do so much to the child that when they start the life at school, let's say they start at 7, they're already almost built and established. They know right and wrong very well, and they can differentiate it. Falling into sin becomes much less problematic. Now, so what parental measures are there to be taken? First, avoiding sex in front of the newborn, in front of infants, in front of children, and so on and so forth. Now, this is something important. And we may not realize it, but there are many traditions on it. Now, I'm not sure if I have time. I'll just go through the tradition. It will be good if I know how much time I have, so sometimes I can skip it. Here, this is from the Holy Messenger who said, وَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ. He's swearing by he who his life is in his hands, in Allah's hands. لو أن رجلا غشي امرأته وفي البيت صبي مستيقظ يراهما ويسمع كلامهما ونفسهما. If a man becomes intimate with his wife in a house where there's a child who is awake, now this child is not only a newborn, it's not only an infant, but even it applies to these two also. Now maybe for the 7 or 8-year-old we don't understand it, but with the newborn or the infant we may not appreciate this. If they become intimate when there's a child who is awake and who sees them in action, or even hears their words or hears their breathing during the act, ma aflaha abada, they will not acquire salvation at all. Now I'll explain that in a minute, so don't panic. إذا كان غلاما كان زانيا. If it's a boy, that boy is going to go to adultery. أو جارية كانت زانية. If it's a girl, that girl is going to go to adultery. I'll explain it in a minute. And then the next tradition says, لا يجامع الرجل امرأته وفي البيت صبي فإن ذلك مما يورث الزنا. The man shouldn't have intercourse with the wife when there's a child in the house, because this will lead to adultery. The children going into adultery. Now, these aren't definitive, and we see tens of traditions on this, and we see that the traditions vary in severity too. And when they vary in severity, the scholars suggest that it all depends on how much this is happening. But the important thing for me and you is that this is potentially possible. It's not a cause and effect relationship, but this is potentially possible. Doing this will incite the child. You've activated areas of the child that you shouldn't have activated, which that means the sexual faculty is present at birth, it's there. You've precipitated it way too early, and once you precipitate it too early, it's going to be difficult now, because now they want satiation. They can't just discard it, but you precipitated it, and that can even lead to actions such as adultery, and even masturbation, even homosexuality, many other things. Another tradition is the same when Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, whenever he wanted to be occupied with the act, it says, أغلق الباب, he would close all the doors, وأرخى السطور, he would shut all the curtains, وأخرج الخدام, he would tell all the maids and the servants there, everyone to leave. So these are important, they know. But I mean, if you're careless though, or it's just in the other room, and you do this, you're risking the salvation of the child. So seeing or hearing one of those children may or will be drastic depending on the age, awareness and other circumstances. It applies to TV, applies to the internet, even to social media. At the end of the day, they emulate. And as parents, we have the prime responsibility here, because before they go to school, everything is learnt at home. Another parental measure is that children must seek permission before entering the parents' room. Even young children, even at 3 onwards, this has to be taught to them. Their eyes may see maybe a particular clothing that they shouldn't see, a particular action. That particular clothing or that particular action may precipitate their sexual urges, because the sexual realm is within them. It's in their fitra. Sex isn't a bad thing. It's a natural thing. It's innately, it's part of everyone. But certain things can precipitate that. Even the Quran now is entering here. When the Quran is showing this, it means it's something essential. There are many things which are essential which the Quran may not refer to, but we see it in the traditions. Here, the Quran has given this example. I'll just quickly go through the main points. O you who believe, let those who have not yet reached puberty. So it's not a case of them reaching puberty. The Quran here is appreciating and acknowledging that this sexual identity has to arise way before that. Let them ask permission of you before entering, especially during these 3 times. Before the dawn prayer, because there, everyone usually we're in bed and so on and so forth, and the child is entering there, it may be problematic. When you put aside your clothing for rest at noon and after the night prayer, that's especially in these 3 times where the parents don't dress as they do during the day, during these 3 periods. The veracity are 3 times of privacy for you, and it has to be kept like that. And then it goes on. Okay. Another parental mission, not appearing in the nude in front of children and not making the children bare. This is important. Wearing shorts, for example, in front of the children. The women wearing freely the top off in front of the children. No, don't underestimate this. We don't have that right to wear whatever we want, to be very free in the way we wear. The parent, the child has that sexual faculty. They don't differentiate very well the difference between parents and other than parents. Seeing can cause that harm sometimes. Seeing can precipitate things which should acquire later on at a much younger age. Don't desensitize the sexual dimension of the child. So these things may break their modesty, their bells of chastity, and precipitate these sexual tendencies way too early. Now some traditions equate seeing the genitalia of children, one step further, with that of adults. You can't even, seeing the genitalia of your children. That's in Islam, it's prohibited. Now there are reasons why, we may point out later on. In this tradition, Bi'sal Baytul Hammam, what a bad place is the bathroom. Now the bathroom of those days is different to the bathroom of today, but still I think the underlying message still holds. Why? Yahtiku sit. Because the veils of chastity are broken. Why yubdil awla? The genitalia are disclosed. Wa ni'mal baytul hammam. But what a good place is the bathroom. Why? Yudhakkiru harran nar. One recalls the fire of hell, because in the bathroom maybe those days it was a very hot place. Wa min al-adab. And that which the proper etiquette dictates is what? أن لا يدخل الرجل ولده معه الحمام فينظر إلى أولى. The proper etiquette dictates that the man doesn't take his child to the local bath place, but maybe they were exposed to seeing, for example, genitalia more easier in those places. But he shouldn't take him there so that he sees his genitalia. This is something important in Islam. Well, even maybe other religions and even humanitarian grounds, they may appreciate it. But you see, in Islam, from 3 onwards, it shouldn't be played around with. The public school showers is something which is important. We have to discuss this. In Islam, having a shower in public schools, well, it's not even at home. Recommends you to wear shorts when you're having a shower. That area has to be covered. Another parental issue, refraining from touching children's genitalia. Now, this is very important. Why? Because it's regarded as making the child susceptible to sexual urges, especially from 6 years of age onwards. This is important. Touching, not letting the child from 3 or 4 onwards, but the traditions are specifying at 6 onwards. Not letting them have their shower themselves, and you getting involved and touching their private parts. This will come to the tradition in a minute. This is the tradition. Mubasharatul mar'a ibnataha, where the woman directly is washing her child, her daughter. إذا بلغت 6 سنين, if the girl has reached 6 years of age, شُعْبَةٌ مِنَ الزِّنَا. This is it's not adultery, but it's almost on a par with adultery. See, look how important Islam has gone into the details here. If she's 6 now, for goodness sake, no, let her have the show herself. You don't touch her at all. One of the reasons is this, and it's the same reason why pony or horse riding for girls is disliked and not recommended. It's because you're now precipitating these sexual tendencies. And if you precipitately, at this age, either through the pony riding or horse riding, or by you keep on touching the private parts, when they grow older, now you've activated something they want satiation of. And what are you going to do then? I mean, they can have the shower now or there when they're grown up a bit, and you'd be surprised. One of the most common illnesses which I'm receiving in my emails, I mean, I receive about 20 emails a day, but one of the most common problems in male and females is this question of masturbation. The reason maybe that this illness was precipitated way before because of our lifestyle with them. That's important. Why? Because you activated something too early. Remember, sexual identity on a par with the time, the biological, the psychological, emotional, social needs have to grow on a par with the time. You went way too early by doing certain things. And that's why we have the Sharia. If you just abide by the Sharia, what's wajib, what's haram, what's makruh, and so on and so forth, you'll be minimizing these kind of illnesses in future life. And there's no point at 18 years of age now you come to me and then they say I have this problem, that problem. No, it's nothing to do with me now. You have to sort out in the first 14 years of life. It's very difficult now to make amends. It's not impossible, but it's very difficult. Other parental measures, refraining from kissing and hugging non-mahram children after a certain age. This also is not paid heed to at all. The traditions, we don't have traditions specifying a form of covering before puberty. There's no need to push your children with covering themselves. We don't have traditions indicating that girls not being allowed to participate before puberty in mixed gatherings, or even after puberty if it's controlled. However, where we do have traditions, and a lot of them, is they're being kissed. Children who haven't reached the age of puberty, they're being kissed and being hugged by members of the opposite sex. Look at these traditions. I think at the time, just quickly go through them. There are three traditions here. It says if the girl reaches 6 years of age, it's not permissible for a man who's not her mahram to kiss her, and it's not permissible to press upon her, meaning hugging her. Don't let, if you have a girl of 6 years, it's not allowed. Can't let this happen. And the reason now you're not familiar with, it's too early now, and it can cause problems in later. In the other traditions, the same, saying don't put them on your laps. Don't let men, for example, put girls of 6 years of age on their laps and let them play with them. These things are important. And the other one is in relation to boys and girls. With the boys, though, it says in relation to the opposite sex at 7 years of age. Don't let the opposite sex, for example, kiss them. Other, segregating their bedrooms. This is also important. When asking permission to enter a bedroom is important, this would be even more so when you're sharing the bedroom. Here, this segregation applies to opposite sex siblings also. Most traditions suggest that between 6 and 7, you should now segregate the child's bedroom. And they shouldn't really be sharing with a member of the opposite sex or even with their parents. Okay, when they sleep in the same bed as their mother or father, no, that's not Islamic. We don't have that. These things can cause drastic side effects. Just because it's my son or my daughter, we don't have this in Islam, and actually it's disliked. And there are other measures, certain games that they play, and playing around with the genitalia. These things have to be, controlled. Okay. Another faculty of nurturing and teaching the sexuality is in discussing and answering the children's sexuality-related questions. When you have a son and then someone else is being born, they ask you where did, for example, he come from? How did God bring him here? How did he get there? How does it come out of mom? Why are Sarah and I different? These have to be addressed rather than either lying, rather than saying, just shut up and you'll learn when you grow up. Every child, at whatever age, they have to be given that answer on a par with that age. But you shouldn't lie to them, because by lying you're underestimating their intelligence, and actually they understand a lot. You may not think, or maybe children at your time didn't understand too much, but today they're becoming more and more intelligent. So it's always better to answer them truthfully. And why? Because the threat is always, if you don't answer, you underestimate them, then they're going to go and find answers for themselves, and they may go and find it from the wrong source or the wrong person. A suggested protocol here, for what we've said so far, so we try and answer as clearly and simple as possible, to at least discard any significant mental confusions or ambiguities. The responses shouldn't precipitate any biological excitation, so that's why, depending on the age, we have to answer on par with that. Refer the child to the more literature-orientated parent, the parent which can explain things more, who is more knowledgeable. We have that that line is extracted from an explicit tradition that we have. Observe the means of chastity. Avoid any expression of hate or distress, laughter or embarrassment when they ask you that question. It has to be a normal thing. If you laugh when they ask that question, then they think, it may be a funny issue. They won't pay heed to it. And actually that can cause problems later on when they're having sexual difficulties in marriage and so on and so forth. No, we have to take these things very seriously. Be sure that your answer was convincing to them at whatever age they are. And make sure when they leave, after you gave them the answer, they're convinced. If they're not, you have to do your best. And until you're not sure that they're convinced, don't let it go. You have to speak with them. But don't elongate it unnecessarily, and speak on a par with their capacity. That was for children primarily from 0 to 7. But it applies to 7 to 14 too. But here now, the direct methods, especially for the adolescents and youth, here there are different things that we have to do. One is familiarizing the children with the biological alterations during puberty. As their biological makeup modifies with time, you have to familiarize them with it. You have to give them the facts of each apparatus that they have, explain what hygiene is on a par with that apparatus. Then you teach them, these are the facts, it's normal, it's nature. And then, with their sexual urges, which are beginning or may arise with them, you teach how they have to deal with these sexual urges, either in the domain of hygiene, but even in the domain of ethics. All this to minimize that deviation to arise. Also, you have to familiarize them with the naturalness of such alterations. The first changes that they undergo with puberty, it's usually accompanied with fear and distress, a degree of bewilderment, total confusion. So they have to enter this stage in the most calm and tranquil manner as possible, rather than the parents being shocked and saying, "Oh, has this happened? We have to now do this," and scaring the child. So the process has to be very natural. Even before it occurs, there has to be a level of education for them to be aware of what is going to happen. Otherwise, if you never tell them, and then they see blood, for example, at a certain age, then you not being able to discuss it in a natural way, that will have its own complications. So you have to enter this in a smooth transition, minimizing potential succeeding states of depression and distress. If the woman, the child, the girl or boy hates the changes they are undergoing because of the way the parents introduce them to these concepts, and now they hate it, and it's very easy to hate it. That hate will bear with them through the rest of their lives. And many of the sexual difficulties parents arise, as that Western psychologist said, it all goes back to the childhood years. It all goes back to education. So pre-education here must be done in a warm, in an unhurried manner, preparing them for responsibility as well as discarding all creeping traces of embarrassment. It's nature, they have to be proud of it. And they have to be explained, but carefully, that this is out of their control, that this is nature's way of doing certain things. Then equilibrating and tuning their psychological states. What does this mean? Here the parents have to acknowledge and become informed of the precise hormonal and neurological changes that this child's body now is undergoing at puberty, and they shouldn't panic, they shouldn't be distressed about it. Here, if during these changes, one of the changes that children, especially adolescents, they undergo, especially during or near puberty onwards, they have this instinct of seeking independence excessively. That also the parents have to understand this is a natural process the child is going through. It's nothing abnormal. So if they do keep on going against the laws and the norms of the house, instead of panicking and disciplining them in a very negative way, one has to try and minimize it and not to be unpleasant to the children. They shouldn't react to such a stance. Here there's a typo error there. You have to always note in the prophetic tradition, in the third 7 years, they have to be treated as two equals now. No one should have the upper say. It was in the first 7 years where you had the time of disciplining maximally, but now the third 7 years, there are two equals here, and they have to be treated like that. If the parents have the upper say, they'll be just having a wasting, tearing effect upon the child. So the behavior must be tolerated. When you see the child now on puberty is now acting a bit abnormally, wanting certain things, wanting to go against the norm and so on and so forth, the compassion still has to be there, and we have one tradition that says youth is a stage of psychosis. And the parents have to understand this. They're going under a change here. These neurological changes have to be respected. For girls, I think I'll end here. I think the Adhan has been read. For girls who reach their puberty earlier than men, here a number of practical actions ought to be cultivated and tuned during this unsteady period, and the Sharia is very adamant that these have to be trained. The way she clothes, the way she speaks, the way she sits and socializes, all of this, why? Because it has to be on par with her identity in the sexual domain. And if this is compromised, if she clothes like men, eats like men, speaks like men, sits like men, and socializes like men, well, that's going to cause confusions in her later sexual life. And since the girl acquires puberty much earlier, this responsibility in relation to girls is given by the Sharia at a much earlier age. Okay, now I think since the Azan has been read, I have many more slides. I'm not sure how many I covered here, but I'm not sure what the program will be, but I'll stop there. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm trying to finish this as quickly as possible. Number 4 was nurturing the sexual identity. Direct methods by the parents once again. Here the same-sex parent must display and instill the masculine or feminine, respectively, emotions, intellect, psychology, output to the respective children. So the man has to show a set of characteristics for the boys to learn from and simulate. How the man provides for the woman, how a man treats the woman, solves issues or manages her living. The man being an attribute of Allah's, a manifestation of Allah's attribute al-Raziq, and how through the nafaqa he exhibits this Raziqiyya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For the girls, the same applies but to different modes. Here the mother must show what it means to nurture, her being this manifestation of Allah's attribute Ar-Rab, much stronger than the man, and she nurtures. Now it doesn't matter in which field, it's something which the girl has to copy and see as an example. If there's any absence of the man or the woman in the house for whatever time, these capacities may be compromised with, and the children may even copy the wrong model, and this can contribute to a confusion of their identity. Being attentive to their sexual needs and providing direction, especially after puberty. Here, to be accepting, the parents have to be accepting of the sexual tendencies in youth. They have to be told that it's normal, what they're feeling is normal for the opposite sex, rather than something which is, illegal or rather evil. It's a sign of a healthy fitra. It just needs monitoring and remodeling. Also, another way of being attentive is explaining the goals of their having sexual tendencies at such an age, at such a degree. They have to be educated that all these tendencies have to be geared towards marriage in the future, and they have to ethically monitor them in preparation for that marriage one day in the future. You have to inform them of the side effects of if they sexually deviate or transgress, and that has to be discussed in our depth. Or you have to educate them on how they can convert this sexual energy that is predominating over them into other forms. Like for some of maybe arts, sports, these are very good ways that they can alleviate or transfer that accumulated sexual energy into other forms of energy. Teaching them methods of how to control sexual urges. Now this has a wide variety of different routes here. One is controlling one's looking at non-mahrams. There's no denying the fact that this ogling, when we look at non-mahrams in a certain way, this can be a start and precursor to most sexual transgressions in the Holy Quran. There is reference to it. No one is saying there's a direct causal relationship between ogling and acting sexually impurely, but it's not causal, but it's a threat. There is an association here. We can't be naive. For example, in the West, they allow the woman to dress however they want, and they call that freedom to dress in what way they want. The problem is that we can't, although the man is not justified in doing certain actions, but when you identify causes, we have to minimize those causes. And that's why the dress code of the woman is important in the Islamic canon. But then, in any case, this ogling can be the start to a wide range of different sins. It's not only one or two. And therefore Islam has brought this concept of lowering one's gaze, and it applies to both men and women. Being alone in a room, that also Islam brings the red light here, and not that it's haram to be in a room alone, man and woman alone in a room. However, there are certain circumstances where the Sharia has entered the arena, and I'd say that if these circumstances prevail, and even being in a room alone is haram. Now in the public library, or in a public place like the library, that's unproblematic, unless really it leads to one sinning, which that's not usually the case. But in a private place here, after the harmony, he can say if no one can enter and they fear that they may fall into sin, so there's two elements here. It would be haram to be alone in one room. Whereas ultimate system, there is subtle difference. He always says if there's a probability of vice, staying there would be haram, even if others can enter. Controlling one's nutrition, it's a very important discussion. There are some foods which can precipitate those urges. Maybe the high fructose foods that we have in many drinks and foods, that's a legitimate thing. And there are many other foods here. It's worthwhile if you find a clinical nutritionist who can open some of these aspects for you. Controlling one's thoughts, it's very difficult to control one's thoughts. I'm not saying television is bad or the cinema is bad. I'm not here to say that. Actually, that's part of recreation and it should be done. As long as you just control it though, it doesn't get out of control. If you just ban everything, and it's not as if going to the cinema is haram or watching television is haram, but if you ban it and the children, can't and don't allow them to see it, that will cause problems of its own. And eventually they're going to be independent and they'll do much worse things. But if you can let them have these recreational activities, but in a controlled manner, whilst you're teaching them how to lower their gaze when they watch a film, and so on and so forth, this can benefit them for the rest of their lives. One route that the Holy Prophet would use when he would count people who would say what's wrong with adultery, what's wrong with this sin and that sin, one route he would always use was, imagine what if it was your mother, your sister, your daughter. So even if you're, let's say, 14 years of age and you're considering a certain sin, Always imagine, well, what if it was, someone was doing that to your sister, your mother, your aunt, so on and so forth. That can be one way. Avoiding skin-to-skin contacts, that's also important in Islam. But according to many of the ulama, the physical body is a manifestation of the eye. It's a manifestation of the spirit. It's not separate to the spirit. It's one reality. But here it's a physical manifestation. So here in skin to skin, when you shake someone's hand from who is non-mahram, the reason it's haram is because you're contaminating the soul. This physical hand of yours isn't like a piece of wood separate to you. It's a physical manifestation of you. So when the women have to wear hijab, the men have to refrain from certain things, it's all because it's a sign of veiling, that it's protecting the chastity of the soul. It's the soul that is elevating in this process. And with masturbation, the thing becomes much worse. You're abusing the soul in very strong proportions. Proportions that you may never, return back to spiritually, that is. And then finally, there are some things that the Sharia suggests, but these are the first things that you have to suggest to people. Like, fasting or letting the hair grow a bit longer, even pubic hair. These kind of things, they're good, but they may not be the first thing to suggest to people. These are just general formulae and guidelines. All these you have to look on a one-to-one basis. It differs from case to case, depending on the person. They were all direct methods. Then we come to the indirect methods. Here we have to secure the child's psychological and emotional needs, displaying affection and compassion, stroking them, offering gifts, valuing them, granting them security towards the people, other people and the world in general. If you introduce various things, especially in the sexual domain, as things which scares the child, or do it in a way that the child becomes insecure and is scared of you and scared of many different things, that child won't be able to socialize in the real world. That child may even feel very inhibited after marriage. It's a sense of security that the parents have to instill in the children, and they have to do that in all stages, especially the first 14 years. Another route we see in the traditions, the concept of supplication, now be it at the time of conception by the parents, be it the postnatal etiquettes that we have, but also with children, especially from when they begin to speak and everything, teaching them supplications from an early age, before sleeping, starting the day. Don't overdo it. Very slowly but gradually, the tongue of supplication, if it becomes second nature to them, they will always think twice, because they're recalling, I know more, I know. And then before they sing, that thinking twice is always an option. Another is blossoming the fitra, building the scaffolding to good ethics and etiquette, teaching them Islamic laws, teaching and nurturing ethics, especially modesty, haya, chastity, iffa, and a kind of ghayra, that ghayra of zeal towards one's religion, and fervor, that has to be, instilled gradually over the years. Causes to sexual transgressions can be divided into two: household-related and social and environmental. The household-related causes to sexual transgressions, one is where there's an absence of affection and compassion to the children, where the attitudes of the parents are authoritarian, where children are belittled constantly, where not concealing the parents' intimacy from the child, this can also be a cause, and ignorance of the child. Why do you think it's so important for Islam that the child be educated, to acquire knowledge? It's important. I'm not saying it's the sole solution, but the more the child is in ignorance, the more he or she will be susceptible to various things. Environment-related causes to sexual transgressions. Well, here, okay, this is not the environment, but we have to presume and we have to endeavor that before they have that access to the environment, we do our maximum at home. It's only when we fail at home, they become more susceptible to these environment issues. Yes, the school can be a very important cause to sexual transgression. Bad friends, the media and cinema, recreation time and free time, what will they be doing? You have to teach them what to do in their free time.
Wealth and poverty, they both can be good or bad things depending how they understand what wealth and poverty are. Ogling, socializing with deviant people, and male and female intermingling in a negative way. I'm not saying intermingling per se is wrong, but here there are certain precautions that has to be taken. Prevention and treatment of sexual transmissions. Well, starting with prevention, but prevention, that's always the better of the two. Even in the medical field, we always work with prevention rather than treatment. Treatment can be severe, it can be surgical, and we have to enter those areas. Even in spirituality, we have treatment which is preventative, but if it's surgical, it's going to compromise you one way or the other if you leave things too late. In Islam, it appreciates that prevention is always better. In this tradition, إِنَّ الْغَالِبَ لِهَوَاهُ أَشَدُّ مِنَ اللَّيْلِ يَفْتَحُ الْمَدِينَ وَحْدَهُ. You want to predominate over someone who's drowned in their animalistic tendencies, that will be more difficult than wanting to free a city alone. You see, these things are very important. This shows that you shouldn't reach that stage where you are drowned in your whims and your passions and those animalistic tendencies. Getting back is almost impossible. Now the parents had 14 years to sort this out. If they haven't done it in 14 years, it's going to be very unlikely that they can improve. It's not impossible. Allah is, all beneficent, more merciful. He's more compassionate than we can even imagine. However, the question of responsibility is important here. As long as everyone just acts on a part of responsibility. Okay, education for all ages will help with that prevention. Control over the causes of deviancy, it all starts at home. Having Sharia study circles, centers such as this, every week, if they have, I'm sure they have it, but sessions of ahkam. Ahkam, we always start with taharat, and that's very important, and tahreed, but we have more control sessions of ahkam where you just focus on one or two areas, for example. Every week or every month, you focus on different areas. This area is an important chapter in fiqh, and there are many rulings here, and you get together and you discuss it, and you get more. Then it's the tariq study circles, because it's not only about the letter of the law which is important, but the ethics, the spirituality, the spirit of the law, which governs education. These are the main governing forces from which even the Sharia depends upon. The Sharia is just a manifestation of the tariqah in a more tangible realm. Then treatment, yes. Now the treatment is difficult. This I think is the last slide. Yes. This is treatment. I can't give any general formula. It's a number of things that one has to always take in mind. It's a case-to-case approach. It differs with the child. In this, I've just given different domains for us to share with one another. But at the end of the day, the child is in a certain setting, at a certain age, with a certain background, and treatment has to be catered. So it's multidisciplinary, if you like. Get a scholar involved. It's important. A full history has to be taken. Things, from even early years of their childhood can help to identify the causes, and then you identify what the causes are, the precipitating factors, you minimize it, you study the family environment, the school environment, what they're doing in the workplace, the school place, and so on and so forth. You need that thorough history in order to be able to provide the best form of treatment that you can. And finally, the concept of community assistance. Centers like this, they have a certain segment, 1 or 2 hours a day or 1 or 2 hours a week, where they bring a counsellor who can always provide them with some direction. The community there may be some help in different areas in this domain that they can afford. Okay,